Hey, welcome. It's Captain Matt, Boater Secret Weapon. I want to thank you for joining us for this Sunday night live. We're getting ready to start here in just a couple of minutes here. We'll start about 8:30, but I wanted to welcome you. If you've never been to a live, here's what you can expect. Just go ahead and chat in your comment section, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. Just ask your question, leave your comment there, and then as we go through the time, I just kind of scroll down all the comments and I try to answer them. Now, if it's something that I need to ask you a question, I may ask you a question and just put it in the chat again, and I'll come back and I'll get that information so I can give you a more personalized response, something that's going to really add value for you. This is just something I do. One, it's great fun. I really enjoy it. It's helpful for the community. Just sharing my knowledge. Now, one thing that you need to know, I don't know everything about boats. I know a lot about boats. I've been a boater since I was 5. I've sold boats. It's something that is a big part of my life. With that said, I don't know everything. Matter of fact, sailboats, have zero experience with sailboats. Bass boats, very little experience there. Bow riders, deck boats, center consoles, jet boats, twin engines, stern drives, outboards, inboards, all of that I have experience with. And if I have an answer, I'll give you my best answer. If I don't have an answer, I'll try to give you a resource that will be valuable for you. If I have an opinion, I'll try to give you that opinion, but let you know this is what I think, not what I absolutely know. So I look forward to it. Here's a little video intro that a subscriber made for me. Thanks, Bo. And we'll see you on the live when it kicks off here in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. Captain Matt, Boater Secret Weapon. We are here with another Sunday night live. Thank you for joining us. And, well, hopefully we're live. Something's not looking right on my screen. But anyway, hope things are going well for you. I need to try to get to my comments. There we go. Let's see. We got 211 on. Hopefully he has got some good news for us that we'll see what he's got to say. Rob, welcome. Evening. Eric, good to have you back. Here we go. Captain Boat is ready, shooting for Thursday to go out, sea trial, and sign the papers. That's awesome, man. Congratulations, sir. If you don't know, he has a see if I can get this right, 248 Commander, which is a Sea Fox center console, really nice, big center console on Cumberland, I believe, Kentucky. I know he's in Kentucky. I think he's on Cumberland. But he has been waiting for this boat for months and months and months. It got to the dealership 2 weeks ago. I think he said it was there. They got it prepped and did their PDI, their pre-delivery inspection, put it on the water and got everything ready. I don't know if he had electronics installed, but a very, very exciting Thursday in the future for him. Brock, welcome. Brock's been I think Brock was probably on one of the very first ones I ever did, and he's always been a consistent one. Chris M, welcome back. Chris was with us last week. Let's see, T-Bone. I think T-Bone was with us last week, if I remember right. Todd's been with us a bunch as well. It's getting that time up in Maryland. Yes, it is. My wife and I were out doing some yard work this weekend, and spent a good amount of time outside. I was on the water last Thursday, and it was pretty nice out. And I'm actually, I don't know if I mentioned this the other day or not, but there's a Towboat US here on the lake I used to sell for. And so I'm helping them out here and there. And Logan, he's a great owner. If you're in the Charlotte area, he's a great guy. But it gives me an opportunity to get on the water to help tow some people that are in some tough situations, help Logan out as he's growing the business. He's a young guy that bought the business. He'd been captaining for him for a number of years, bought it himself, and now running it. And so it's been kind of fun helping people out when they're in a tough spot. You actually put my captain's license to use, and also gives me the opportunity to hopefully find new content, find things that, oh crap, I'm seeing this a lot when I'm out there just kind of pleasuring, because just hanging out, waiting for a call to come in, it gives me a good opportunity to shoot some cool stuff on the water, as well as find some new things that people might find valuable. Ray's from Indiana. Welcome, Ray. Good to have you. Ray is a pontoon guy, and he is considering possibly maybe on the hunt for moving into aluminum fishing boat, something he can run a little bit more on his own when he wants to get out there, and be able to handle everything on his own as a retired guy. Let's see, not yet. Got the electronics sitting. Be ready. There's going to be all sorts of stuff that you're going to be wanting to get done. Let's see what Brock's got going on. We had a rough day Saturday on the Santee Cooper. Winds over 25, 8 a.m. Rain moved in. They're going to move the tournament to Sunday. 200 plus tournament going on then. Wow. Well, hopefully everybody was safe out there. And I don't know. You probably can't catching many fish in that situation. So let's see. T-Bone's got a 211 blue water. Key West blue water. Key West is a nice center console. I think the 211 is a center console. They also do a bunch of dual consoles as well. But let me show you this. We may have some visitors popping in. My daughter's spring break starts this week, but I'm a proud papa, so I'm gonna go full screen on me and show you guys this. So this is, let's see if this comes through. This is my daughter's work. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says water sports. She's got a pair of skis. Her project in school was to create a magazine. So she told me, Dad, I got to create a magazine. What should I do it on? We talked about it a little bit, and she decided she was going to do her magazine on water sports. So she wrote about who made the first wakeboard, the Scurfer. If any of you guys remember the Scurfer, I remember I rode one back when I was in high school, probably early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And so she drew some pictures, water skiing, wakeboarding, and she did a great job. She got a really good grade on a 95 on it. And I just thought it was pretty cool. Here's one more picture I want to show you, because she's a pretty good artist as well. So this is, if you can see that's my daughter, her wakeboarding. This is a wakeboarder being towed by a bow rider. So she's all into it. I know she's ready for the summer. I had to show that. I thought it was pretty great. And she got a 95 on it. So she was proud of her work, as she should be. So anyway, all right, done bragging on my kids. I just saw something that sold the Bennington on Friday. So the Ray, I think Ray had that for 2 years, has Bennington for a couple years, and hopefully he's able to find the next boat that he's looking at. See, T-Bone's got a Minn Kota trolling motor, 72-inch shaft, and the 9-inch screens on his lives. Let's see here. Had a guy bang up his prop pretty bad. Took a second place with 7 pound 3 ounces. Missed first by 2 ounces. Oh, that's rough. That is rough. But that's for a rough day like that. I'm guessing catching anything was a challenge. First solid sunglass tan line of the season today. Summer has began. Herb, that's so funny. I talked to a guy yesterday, a neighbor of mine. Some neighbors are Florida FAU, Florida Atlantic University alums, and so we went over there for the Final Four game with FAU and New Mexico State, San Diego State. Well, actually, my old high school friend is an assistant athletic director there. I don't know if she still is or not, but she was a track star in high school, and I know she's done a great job while she was there, and I think she still is. But he had his big sunglass line on from out golfing, and I was starting to get mine from Maya down in the water. So that is definitely a sign of the season when you haven't got your base tan yet, but you got the red and the sunglass lines. Good to get the first one. Garmin 1243 transom mount transducer, standard horizon radio, 8-foot antenna. Perfect. You are going to be in good shape. Awesome. So let me know what you guys got. I'm going to refresh. Something's not right on my screen. So if I go away, I'll be right back. Hang on a second. All right, let's see if that I don't think you guys were seeing any issues, but I wasn't able to see all of my comments. All of your comments, I should say. All right, there we go. Let's see if that does us a little bit better. All right, perfect. Herb, come by. How come my dog doesn't bark when you come around? I assume T-Bone and Herb are on the same dock at the marina. That's T-Bone. That's because he's got some dog treats in his pocket. He knows how to handle the dogs. 211, make sure your firmware is updated. New firmware finally lets you split screen gauges. Yeah, I think that's Brock. That's a really good point for you guys that have your electronics. Make sure you're updating that software all the time. I'm not sure how often they come out with big releases, but keeping that upgraded can give you additional features and better functionality as well. So, Ray, when it comes to runabouts, let's I'm just going to pull this over here. It depends on if you're talking about aluminum or fiberglass. If you're aluminum, you've got the regular players. You've got Lund, you've got Lowe, you've got Crestliner. I assume you're going to want a deep V. So this is Discover Boating. Here is with who? Go ask your mother. Are you sleeping there or here?
We don't know.
Yeah, you can sleep there for sure. Okay. Shut that door, please. All right. Spring break, first sleepover request of spring break. I'm sure there'll be many more. But you've got, let's see, you're in Indiana. Princecraft has theirs as well. Kind of that deep V runabout. There's several of them to do it. Sea-Arc, I don't think they have anything real big that would fit the bill. Anything that's super deep, their most stuff is going to be flat bottom modified. You can do, if you do a search for like walleye boat, that will get you it. Tracker has there's going to be on the value side of things. Alumacraft has theirs. You can see that's a little bit deeper with the windshield, which I'm guessing is what you're looking for. Crestliner as well. Crestliner has that same deep V. Let's see what their model is. I think it's the Super Hawk is theirs. That's the deep V. Yeah. So a 1950 Super Hawk. Crestliner is going to be, they're a Brunswick company. Brunswick has many of them. So Brunswick owns Lund, Crestliner, Lowe, and Princecraft is theirs as well. And then Smokercraft is another one that would fit the bill for you, Ray. Let's see there. Let's see the Ultimate Legacy, Ultima Adventurer. Those are all Pro Angler XL. I don't know how much fishing you're going to do. Let's see the Excursion. That looks nice and deep. But that's going to, Smokercraft is going to be a good, solid mid-tier boat for you. And so you can see them all. Express boats, I don't think they have anything super deep. I think they are crappie. I don't know if they've got anything windshield. But Express is another a good mid-tier. Duckworth is going to be more northeast. Low, we talked about northwest. Starcraft might will have one. Oh, there we go, fishing. Yeah, so Starcraft again, it's going to be, I should say this. I was going to say value just because of the brand. Their deck boats are definitely in the value segment, but I'll say I haven't inspected a Starcraft on the aluminum side, so I better hold my tongue on that one. But just go check it out. If you just go aluminum fishing boat, walleye boat, that's gonna find you what you're looking for. And G3 is another one that I think they probably got yeah, they're sportsman, not quite as deep, but Bay Series sportsman. There we go. The Angler V, something that's going to give you that deeper. And then if you're Ray, if you're thinking, hey, I want to go and no, as far as videos, I haven't made a best and worst of the aluminum boats. I don't have that. I don't have that level of expertise yet. It is. I sold Crestliner for a second, like a season, and they didn't take in our area. And I went through them and I knew them pretty well. They're good mid tier boat, Brunswick company, so they're always going to have a Merc on them. And Lund is their more premium end. But you know, if you're just getting out and just cruising around, I know you're not gonna be out in any real terrible conditions or anything. I think what fits the budget, but you had your Bennington before, so you're gonna be used to a little bit higher level of quality, fit and finish, ride quality. And all of that is going to make a difference. So just start going and checking them out at some dealers in your area. And what I was planning on doing, it didn't end up happening this season, was getting up to a Minneapolis or upper Midwest boat show where they'll have all the aluminum boats and do a 3-day deep dive on them. I didn't get that done this year with all the other project I had going, but I haven't been able to put a video together on those. Unfortunately, just waiting on the fenders to be delivered. Supposed to be here Tuesday. Awesome. Congratulations. Got a new boat. It's the best way to adjust the bunks on the lift. Okay, so Gavin, it is what you want to do. Let's see if this has it. All right. So I'm going to go big screen here. So what you want to do is I'm going to get a marker and draw this on. I assume it'll this one come off. This one will be more visible. All right. So you've got, what kind of boat do you have, Gavin? I'm assuming that you've got a bow rider or fiberglass V hull. Let me know if that is or isn't true. So you've got on a boat. Let's see if you answer that question for me, Gavin. I'm gonna wait till you answer because it'll be slightly different on that. Brock, I was told that it will do it, but check. Thanks. Bunk guides. Is it good to use bunk guides with fiberglass boats? Yeah, it's fine. You want to make sure that the reason if you're in saltwater, the carpet's not as durable, but it holds the salt, and so it's just you're asking for trouble, especially if you're having an aluminum boat. It's not as big a deal on fiberglass, but the bunk guides are what most trailer manufacturers are going to, is that kind of harder plastic. So like let's do Shorelander trailers, boats. If you look, even like Shorelander, I think is a pretty solid trailer. If you look at their guides, a lot of them are going to have, let's see if we can show me. Well, that one's still got carpet. But yeah, you're gonna be going with rollers. All right, I'm not seeing a picture that's going to show me what I'm looking for.
I brought a special guest with me.
Uh-oh. All right. This is another special guest. This is her birthday was yesterday. How old did you turn?
11.
11. So these two are partners in crime. Say hi real quick.
Hello.
All right. Say goodbye.
We're having a sleepover at her house.
At her house?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Have fun. Brush your teeth. Listen. Be good. Be respectful, please. Thank you. All right. Shut my door, please. All right. So 1 down, 1 to go. Let's see. I'm not finding what I want to see, but yeah, I think you're okay. Is there a reason? Are you redoing your trailer, or resurfacing the bunks? What are you doing? But I don't see any reason why you can't do that. Couldn't wait for the update. So annoyed. You're welcome, Ray. Glad to help. What is going on? All right. I got stuff fitted from the boat 2019. All right. Got a little side conversation going on. Good. Let's see if okay. 26 dual console V Hall. Perfect. That's what I don't know why that's where my head went, but all right. So Gavin, here's the key is on the bottom of your boat, you've got your lifting strakes. Okay. The way you want it to set up is you've got to have the clearance for your centerline keel. Okay. So you've got to have them up high enough that your centerline keel is off, but you want them spaced in a way that you've got it off that strake, that lifting strake's that little stair step thing on the hull that when you make a turn, it kind of holds you in there when it gets you up on plane, and it allows the boat to do what you want. What you want to do is you want to try to get that bunk set so it's riding right there, but you don't want it where half of the strake is on and half of the strake is off. That puts a lot of pressure on a corner on the fiberglass, and it can cause damage. Okay. Because you got the whole weight of the boat sitting on just a small portion, and it can cause damage there. So you want it out as far as you want. Make sure you've got the clearance to your keel, and there's really no great way to do it. You can measure it up and you can figure out, okay, I've got my clearance is this much, and start there. Put the boat on, lift it up, see where you're hitting. You can lift the boat up when it's still mostly in the water, so you're not lifting the whole weight of it. And it's, you're going to put it down. It's not like it's going to sit there for a day or more. You're going to lift it up, check, see where you're sitting. I don't know if I'll be able to, boat on a lift. I'll be able to, if I'll find a picture. This isn't a great picture, but so if you see those strakes right there, let me go big screen on this. If you see those lifting strakes right there, and this is on that looks like a what's the name I'm looking for? Chris Craft, a new Chris Craft. But if you see these lifting strakes right here, you can see how it's going down. You got another set right there. It's on the outside of this one and on the inside of this one. And you want it to rest there, but your keel, that center line, is not going to hit your bracing. And as you lift it up, I mean, you've got maybe an inch every time you go up another hole, you're going to go up an inch or so, but you're just going to keep adjusting, pulling it off, putting it back on, pull it off, put it back on. And you start with, let's make sure that we're high enough to cross that keel to get that up. And then just start making your adjustments from there. Adjust side to side, adjust up and down. Once you get the height up, then you can adjust up and down, and you may need to make just a little bit of adjustment from there. Your angle of your bunks is going to be flexible, so that's going to pivot. There's probably going to be a pivot point on there, and then you just slowly but surely match it up. So that's probably the best way to go about that, Gavin. Hopefully that makes sense. The biggest thing is make sure your center line, make sure that your keel is high enough, and then make sure your bunk is not sitting right on the edge of that that lifting strake. Okay. Spent way too much money upgrading the Let's Go Bass boat. Hey, as long as you're getting some return on the tournament wins, that's good. That's good. Recently purchased a 2012 Ranger. Biggest fear is loading onto the trailer. Not sure how far into the water to place the trailer. Jim, we have our Trailer Like a Pro, our Trailer Like a Pro program that you can check out. Just go to trailerlikeapro.com. You almost always go deeper than what you need to. So every boat, every ramp is a little bit different. But here is this one thing will help you tremendously, whether you do the Trailer Like a Pro program or not. But start with your bunks. Let's see how's the best way to do this. All right, so start with your bunks. This is the water level. Start with your trailer back down and about a foot of your bunks, if you have a bunk trailer, sticking out of the water. And this is in Trailer Like a Pro, what I talk about is friction. What the biggest thing, if you understand this, if you can handle and maneuver your boat, this is the biggest concept that you need to understand that will help you, and it's friction. You want just enough friction that when you get your boat, you've got your trailer like this, and you got the boat coming up, it kind of, just rattles in between the bunks, and it lines itself up to be on the bow stop, right? What you want is you want just enough friction that the boat's going to stay there. It's not going to hit exactly where it needs to be and float off. It's going to hit, it's going to get where it needs to be. And because there's enough friction on those bunk rails, it's actually going to stick. That's the point where you want to be. Now, the about foot on the bunks sticking out may not be perfect for you. That may be a little too much, and if your ramp is this steep versus this steep versus this steep, that's going to make a difference as well. But you almost always want some of your bunk sticking out unless the ramp is real flat. Okay. The other thing on a lot of boats that I use is the fender wells just at the water level. Those two things, if you've got your bunks sunk and you've got your fender well sunk, you're likely too deep. And I would always err on the side of not being deep enough, because here's what will happen. If you're not deep enough, that friction just gets too great and you don't get all the way to the bow stop. But you get your boat in, it settles in and it still sticks, but you just can't get it all the way on where you want it to. Over time, you'll get really good, especially if you use the same ramps over and over. You'll get really good at, all right, this is my depth. And it's not like there's a perfect setting and anything more, anything less is going to be way off. Like you got a lot of flexibility on a good enough depth, and you drive on, but use that word friction in your mind and just kind of think about the angles and how deep you see it. And the first time you put the boat on, it'll make a lot of sense to you. And that will be, I think that concept will help you. Trailer Like a Pro goes into a ton more detail, and we walk through a lot of other stuff that would be valuable for you. But hopefully, Jim, hopefully that concept clicks with you and makes some sense. And just for the fun of it, there's the Trailer Like a Pro program. All right, let's see what else we got here today. 17-foot bass tracker, back way in to get the bunk wet. Yeah, that's a 211. That's another good point. We talk about that is having the bunks wet. It makes the boat slide up easier, but when you get that right level, you still have that friction, and that way the boat will glide up on it easier. And you get them wet, you pull out, so it slides up easier. But that slide down, that friction's going to hold even more. I definitely like that adding in. Concerned about the weight over time and it collapsing. Let's see here. T-Bone, I think I might have missed the weight over time and them collapsing. Those bunk glides are, I mean, they're real thin and they're real durable. I've never heard of an issue with them. Doesn't mean there's not. Tell me, T-Bone, what kind of boat do you have? I don't know if I know that answer. Tell me what size boat you have, but I don't know. I can't. I'm trying to think of an issue that would come up, and to make sure I'm talking about the right thing. You're talking about the covers that goes over the wood on a bunk trailer, right? The plastic cover that is, it's maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick, that just comes around. It's usually got like little sections or little grooves in it so that water can drain out. If that's what you're talking about, let's see here. Worried that the hard plastic will sink in over time due to weight of the boat, might bite into the boat. It's let me pull something up here. Let me pull something up, T-Bone. Trailer guides. Not trailer guides, trailer glides. All right. So just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing here, is I'm talking about these right here. Something along these lines where, and that's not even, that wasn't exactly it. That's not, they make them, that's what a lot of trailer manufacturers are going to, is the full piece. All right, I'm not finding exactly the picture that's going to show what I want to show it. I don't want to spin. That's not for what I'm looking. But let me do, hey, T-Bone, do this. Send me an email to captain@boatersecretweapon.com with the style you're looking at, and tell me what kind of boat that you've got. and let me see if there's something. Oh, okay. Yeah, 21-foot Key West. No, you're not going to have any problem with that. Unless you're looking something really different than what I like the ones that slide over, so it covers the whole thing. And that way you can attach it on the side. I don't never a fan of attaching something on the running surface that the boat's going to go up. I want it to go over, and I want to attach it on the side. So if that screw backs out a little bit or something happens, that there's not anything that's going to pop up and gouge. I know they've got it recessed and you can sink it down in there, but I just feel better when it's sunk on the side. And when my mind went to trailer guides, that's what it was, that cover that just slips right over the 2x4. And no, I don't think you would have an issue. Let's see here. I don't, T-Bone, I don't have a brand that's off the top of my head. But again, if you shoot me an email, I will send you a couple that I think would be okay. All right. Yep, Jim, that exactly about that 1 foot level is a pretty good start. You can make your adjustments from there. Jim, if you go too deep, it makes it hard to load. Whole boat's floating, bunks will hold. Yes, exactly. That friction is key. That will be a big help. Looking to get a new boat, can spend about 40,000 with financing when a center console. Any suggestions? Not yet. Don, tell me more about what you want to do. So here's the questions I ask. And if you haven't yet, get my toolkit. It's a free toolkit that boatbuyerstoolkit.com, but it's got a bunch of great information there. It's just a downloadable PDF that's like 25 pages, and it'll be helpful information. But here's one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, what are you going to do 80% of the time? Who are you doing it with? That's going to help how big of a boat you need. Where are you doing it? So what type of center console? Do you need it decked out for fishing? Do you need it decked out? Are you just doing family cruising? Do you want to do water sports? Where are you going to store it? Are you going to trailer it? Tell me that information. And also, this is a question I ask in the toolkit. You can answer it if you want, and I'll tell you why I ask it, and it'll help you if you want to share or not. But I asked, what type of vehicles do you buy? So what do you buy for yourself? What do you buy for your spouse or your kids? And the reason I ask that is because if somebody like myself, I buy used trucks, and I'll buy something that's a couple years old. For my wife, we bought a new Honda Odyssey minivan, and we bought the mid tier, the LX, whatever that is, without the entertainment package, because we didn't want our kids watching TV all the time. Sometimes I question myself on that. We play a lot of 24 questions, which is what my daughter calls it. We play 20 questions while we're on the road, and we have a lot of fun conversations. So it's great most of the time, but sometimes I'd be like, just let's be quiet for just a little bit. So answer me those questions, and I can give you a better direction. Okay. Because without that, there's just too many variables as to what could be the perfect boat for you. Okay. Answer that, and I will dive a little bit deeper for you. Okay, let's see. I picked up a Lumar FX aluminum side anchor, super light, game changing to handle. Any negatives you've heard about? Let me pull it up, because I'm not that anchor. LFX is not okay. So it's a Danforth style. It's kind of like the Fortress, but it looks like that's a little different. Okay. Um, No, I have heard. I haven't heard anything positive or negative. This is the first time I'm seeing it actually. So, the one thing that I see is that if that's the max angle of the shank, is that may be okay. Definitely use a good amount of chain, and that will be less of an issue. But no, that's the best picture they have there. Let's see if there's Defender LFX aluminum. There we go. Okay, yeah, so that shank actually goes up more. It looks like that angle is better than what they showed there. Folds up nice and flat. Yeah, that's gonna do the trick. Just make sure you've got a good amount of chain, and really with that style, the weight isn't what's doing the trick. That's why the Fortress anchor um was so popular when it came out, is because they took away all the weight, because it's on a Danforth. It's not really the weight of the anchor that's doing it. It's those flukes digging in, and it's having the chain weigh it down. So all of your bobbin is happening to the chain, and those flukes are being pulled straight down because the back end of that chain is on the ground. And so all that pull is like this, and they're going to stay dug in. So you don't need that big heavy anchor, like let's say a Navy anchor, where a Navy anchor is similar shape, but it's not as pointy, and it's wider on the flukes, I guess. And so they're heavier, harder to handle. This is a little bit bigger, but it's lighter, easier for most folks to handle. I can't think of anything, and I haven't heard anything negative at all on that herb. Most brands foot fender out of the water about 2 inches or so. Um, 211, there's probably 2 feet or so of the front bunks out. Yeah, every ramp, every trailer is going to be slightly different. But if you start with that 1 foot, and like those fenders just above the water or just in the water, that's going to give you a great start to mastering it. T-Bone, listen, I can't remember. I'll try to remember that you're a 21 Key West. But it's the way my screen pops up is I don't always. I got to scroll back up to get information. Birthday party. Yes, that was they had cupcakes. I came home, and there were 4 cupcakes in our refrigerator that somehow made it back to our house from their 2 doors down is where they live. Let's see here. You use screws to mount. Yes, T-bone. Yeah, that's all right. So my comments must be slow loading up tonight, because this is yeah, I think you're good. Mounting on the side, you were right on track with where I was. Is I don't like it when you're mounting from the top. So belly is more full than a wake setter ballast in surf competition. All right, so you're saying um we just had Saint. I don't know if it was your birthday or somebody else's, Bo, but my next door neighbor just came over with my daughter, because they're doing a sleepover, and it's her birthday today as well. So my daughter had a birthday party earlier today, and they made a quick showing to say hi. She wanted to be on the live for her birthday, I guess. I don't know. Want to be fishing, take the family out, live in Miami, be going out to the Keys, live on a lake 22 feet or less. Okay. So you're gonna want something fishing, take family out, live in Miami. How big is Don, when you say your family, tell me how old and how many. Okay. So what that looks like, and that will be helpful. Actually about to buy a truck. The Honda Ridgeline. Okay, so um so Honda Ridgeline. Okay, so we got 5,000 pounds to work with. So Don, when you're looking at that, um, when you are looking at that, you've got probably a 3,000 pound boat, 1,000-pound trailer and 1,000 pounds of gear, fuel, and all of that is probably your max. So that's going to put us at, I don't know if you can go all the way to a 22. That might be a stretch, but I would say, something like T-Bone's Key West, Key West 211 Blue Water, something like that could be a really nice fit for you. Key West has here we go, a 2011 211 Key West on a trailer, dual axle trailer for 40,000, 37,900, if you can see that. That dry weight, that's in Wilmington, North Carolina. Condition matters a ton. I just pulled this up, and it's the first one that came in the search. But something in that might be, it's a good, solid mid-tier boat quality level. It's not the top. It's not the lowest. It's gonna be a good, solid mid-tier boat, and it's gonna do the trick for what you want. With the T-top, if you're going to be doing fishing, so that the bimini doesn't get in your way, gives you a little bit of shade while you're down in Miami. I don't know what the capacity of that is, but you've got probably seating for maybe 6, 2 on the leaning post, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. I don't know, though. Sometimes this one doesn't have a really good picture of the bow, but with the comfort package, you can get 6 in the boat and be okay. Your capacity is probably 8 for the boat, maybe even 10, but there's not that many places for butts. So if the kids are older, okay, you can go 3 at the center console, 1 sitting, 2 standing, hanging on, 4, 5, and then up in the bow if they're a little bit older. But think about not only the capacity of the boat, but places for butts is what I like to look at. Also, I think that mid-tier category is probably where you want to go. You could that will do the trick. And oh, so this video right here is one that you'll want to watch, Don. If you haven't already, maybe that's the one that brought you to us. But watch that video and watch the how to buy a used center console video. There's a couple different ones, and check those out. I think you'll get a lot of good information. I think you'll get brands. I don't represent any brands. I don't sell any brands. I don't have any relationships with any brands. No brands are paying me money. And I like that because I can give you my straight opinion based on my experience and based on actually inspecting boats. But watch that video, and I would think that there's more than 60 fiberglass manufacturers. A bunch of them are down in South Florida, but I'll go through and I rank them towards the end, but I just go through and kind of talk about what I like and what I don't like about each one of them, where I see them, where they're cutting the cost, because you can build a boat to be, the most expensive boat on the market. Let's say a Boston Whaler. They do things different than, let's say, a Bayliner Trophy. Bayliner Trophy is a great boat for the right person, but they build things completely different. Even though they're owned by the same parent company, Brunswick, right? Brunswick owns Bayliner, or Brunswick owns Boston Whaler, and Brunswick owns Bayliner, which builds the trophies. But they do things different, and that's what I explained in this video. So I would check that out, and I think you'll get a lot of value from that. Okay. But Don, because of that ridge line and because of the max towing capacity, you want to be real cautious that you figure in, hey, it's going to have fuel in it, it's going to have gear in it, and that trailer on a dual axle trailer is easily going to weigh 1,000 pounds. Okay. Don't overweight that truck. That's how you're going to have a hard time pulling out at the ramp. Stopping is going to be more dangerous. And it's just going to be harder on the truck overall. But it really does matter, and don't overdo the towing capacity. So hopefully all that helps you. Throw any more questions in. Don, welcome. Deplorable. Yes, Deplorable's been a viewer for a long time, and he went and changed his username on me, so I had to figure out who he was again. Thanks, anchor holds great. Now my son can jump out since I'm not so heavy. Yes, that is good to keep them above water when they're getting out. We boat inland lakes, anchors a must. Your trolling motor. Are anchors a must if you have trolling motor with spot lock? Yeah, I am. It depends. Okay, so you're on an inland lake. You have spot lock. That's great. That will do what an anchor does. Now, here's the thing: is how much juice do you have in your trolling motor? Will it fail? Can that break down? Do you run out of battery? How bad are the conditions? How much power do you have? For me, I always will have an anchor on my boat. It happened to me last season, not this winter, but the previous winter. I was out helping my buddy get his boat winterized, and we're doing a couple other little things on it. So we took the boat out for a last run. Well, of course, it broke down. We had a loose battery terminal that we found out later, but we went out. It was a super windy day. Now, we didn't have a trolling motor, but we threw the anchor out. We sat, had lunch, had a couple beers. We had a great time while we were waiting for the Marine to come tow us in, and it was a non-issue. Now, yes, you can sit there with spot lock on your trolling motor, but if conditions are real bad and that motor can't keep up or that motor runs out of juice, then what? So for me, I would always have an anchor on board. It's not required. It's not a law. You're not going to get a fine if you don't. But having the right anchor, and it also depends on, he uses his anchor all the time because it's a family pleasure boat. It's a 2024 Chaparral. And that, they go and anchor out at the sandbar and just go into a cove and anchor out all the time. So it's for them, it's required equipment to have a good time with their boat. If you don't do that kind of thing and you're always fishing, take the chance. But I would hate it if an emergency situation comes up. And here's the thing about emergencies is hopefully they never happen. But when they do, and you have an anchor, it can be a non-issue, and you can protect yourself and your boat from ended up in the rocks. Or you can say, I don't want to carry that extra weight. I don't want to spend the extra money. And you can not have an anchor, and you can go your whole time boating and it not cause a problem. But the one time you break down and you've been fishing all day and the trolling motor is low on juice, then you could be in a bad situation. So for me, get the anchor and be prepared just in case. Nothing wrong with trophy whaler, Sea Ray. Yeah, it's going to depend on about 8 to 10 of us, mostly adults. All right, so with 8 to 10, you saw the layout on that boat, Don, right? Let me go back to Key West 211 Blue Water. We'll go back to this Blue Water because that's on the top end of your length. You said 22, and I think this boat is right at that 21 foot center line is what it's saying. There just isn't, I mean, I say there isn't, but it will be challenging. Let me get a better key. I want to get a above view shot. And I'm using Key West because T-Bone's got one, and he can probably tell you a little bit about how they use it. But 219 FS is probably the comparable today. So if you look in the newer models, probably when do they start doing this kind of stuff? 2016, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in that range. They started making the center consoles more family friendly. And you'll even, I think that's Key West tagline is family friendly boating is when you read it, you'll see a lot of family mention. And at one point that was their tagline, but you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. Now they've got the bench all the way across the back, but you either lose the live well or you lose access. I don't know what they did, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You start going that gets you 8, and that's a full boat. Actually, that's interesting. The capacity is only 7 on that. Oh wait, oh, that surprises me that the capacity is 7 on that boat. But so that's gonna matter. What your capacity is and the places for butts. Those two numbers are going to be important for you because you don't want to be going through hull over inlet and have too much weight on the boat, especially up in the bow. And now you've overloaded your boat. You're a new boater. You're in challenging situations, and now you get yourself and your family in a dangerous situation. And that boat's almost 22 feet. Let's see about Sportsman 21 console. So if we look at Sportsman, it's going to be, let's go with the hair, or let's go with the open. No, 242. What is going on with their website is all right. So this is their 211. Let's see if we get a top up view. It shocks me. It shocks me the pictures that they don't put on. Showing just the full layout of the boat. They've got a ton of pictures. Let's hope they've got one. I thought Sportsman would for sure have. All right, I'm not finding. Let me get the specs and see what they're rated for. Person capacity 10. There we go. That's the shot I wanted. All right, so they're rated for 10 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that you're at capacity there. Dry weight's 2,300 pounds. We've got, let's say, 1,000 pounds of gear, 1,000 pounds of fuel, or 1,000 pounds for a trailer, maybe more than that. That gets us to 4,300 pounds. Okay. If you put a T-top on there, that's going to be a little bit more. I don't know how they, if they're weighting it. They just have to take an average weight of their boats, and then some options will add. So I don't know if they do it with or without the T-top, but so something like that could put you in the ballpark. That is 2010, 11, 12, something like that. And that's going to give you a good combination. The other, depending on how much fishing is, a dual console is another one that could be a reasonable consideration for you. Let's see what we've got here. Shortest length. So this Key West 203 is another style that, depending on how much serious fishing and how much family fun, you get the windshield, you get the bow, and you get this little L-shaped seating back there, or some sort of configuration, but it's less fishing, more family. And that could be another option if you like that layout better for the way you see yourself. That boat might be a little bit heavier, just because of the construction of everything in the middle here in that windshield. There's going to be a little bit more fiberglass on that boat, likely, because of the way it's built. But that might be another style to consider. We boat inland lakes. Trailering the boat is an anchor a must. We have spot lock and stay off the water and weather. Yeah, it's more a matter of, and it depends. Like, so when you say inland lake, that can be, I boat on an inland lake, that Lake Norman and Lake Wiley. It happened on Lake Norman. That lake has 550 miles of shoreline. I boat at the Lake of the Ozarks, which has 1,500 miles of shoreline. I grew up boating on a lake that I could probably swim 3 laps around the outside of it. And on that lake, yeah, you're okay without an anchor. Okay. So hiking XC is, depending on the specific, depending on the specific lake that you're talking about. I grew up boating in Fremont Lakes in Nebraska. It's a sandpit lake, and you literally just learned to swim. You could swim across the length of it, right? You could throw a baseball across the lake, no problem. So it depends on how big it is, depends on your style. And but for me personally, on the lakes that I boat on, it's and you don't plan on bad weather coming up. You don't plan on an emergency happening. You don't plan on your boat breaking down. So just, I would say on most lakes, yes, I'm still going to carry it. But it's a choice. Debating trophy, but called dealer fees and markup, looking at 65. I would say, Don, with your price point, if that 40 is really is really where you want to be, I would probably look more on the pre-owned side. I think you're going to be a really hard pressed if 8 to 10 people is average. If that's your 80%, what your 80% looks like, I think you might be better off going pre-owned, going a little bit bigger. Maybe even the Ridgeline isn't the right vehicle for you. 5,000 pounds isn't a ton. And, it's, you want to watch that weight. You need the size for that number of people, if that's truly what it will look like. And, because you don't want to be too small. But if it turns out 6 is your normal, you've got a family of 6, well, then that's a little different situation. So really think through that. Watch, if you haven't watched it, on the channel, first time boat buyer, watch the first time boat buyer video. There's a whole playlist that's got all of them, but there's this 35-minute long video, and the second part is like 25 minutes long. First time boat buyer's guide. Watch that video, get the toolkit, and really start to lock in on what that looks like, that budget. Hey, how firm is that? And I talk about this in that video, that first time boat buyers video, is stick to your budget. Know what's going to allow you to comfortably buy the boat, maintain the boat, run the boat, and not feel like you have to use the boat every weekend because it's such a big chunk of your income, and you can't afford not to use it if you're going to have it. And on the other side, make sure that there's enough flexibility in there that you can maintain it the way it needs to be maintained, so that you can run this boat happily for years and years and years to come. And that's going to cost money to maintain it, whether it's new or whether it's used. A used boat may cost a little bit more, but at some point you're going to ding it up. You're going to need to repair it because you did something. With the best boat captain in our Boater Bootcamp, we try to help you avoid most of those. but it's going to happen as a new boater. And you're going to have maintenance. A new boat, you got to do maintenance, even though there's warranty. And in saltwater, especially, you got to do your maintenance religiously. On a pre-owned boat, hey, you got to plan on some money coming out of your pocket to maintain the boat, to make sure it runs consistently, and really think through all that, so you're making a smart decision. Okay. And like I said, yeah, Bo has a Bayliner, and he loves it, and he's always saying, "Listen, don't discount the value of, even though a lot of people give the brand hell, don't discount the value, because it gets you on the water for a lot less money. It's built differently, it's built cheaper, but it's still a nice, safe, reliable boat." And so if that suits you personally, the pride of ownership's going to be there. You know that, hey, there's going to be some plastic, where on the other ones there may be stainless steel, and I may have to replace those at some point. I'm really going to have to take good care of it, and that fits good with you. Then that is absolutely a viable option. That could be a great time. So hopefully that's valuable. I think you are full of shit. Well, Kevin, thank you for that. You might be right, but I share my experience, I share my opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't have to watch. That's fine. I've been on their site for a while, but I believe the Bay series is a bit more spendy. But don't quote me on that. Yeah, I'm not sure what their lineup looks like right now. Trophy trophy. The 22cc is 51,440 base, and ooh, what the heck happened there? And that's going to be that in that size range. The 22 is probably where you're going to want to go. The Bay series, the 21 Bay, it depends on where you're going. Capacity of 10. That's really interesting. 35.9. That Bay series, what you're going to get is you're not going to be as deep up in that bow. If you can see, the freeboard is virtually non-existent right there. So you're standing on top of the boat in the bow versus in the boat, which means that the people sitting up in the bow only can sit on that cooler seat, if there is one. I assume there is. Yeah, can only sit right here. But these really aren't super viable seats for, especially for kids. I don't know how old the kids are, but that really limits your. It really limits the actual capacity. Yes, the Coast Guard says, or the calculation that they use from the Coast Guard says 10, but the reality of places for butts safely are not 10. Okay. So that's why I always like to look at both, is capacity and places for butts is what I call it. Thanks, Matt. First time watching your vids. Appreciate the insight. You're very welcome, Don. Hopefully it is valuable for you. Looking at two boats right now, the DC-29, one's Pursuit, the other is a World Cat. Any opinion, brands, monohull versus cats for the Bay and the Gulf? You can't go wrong with a Pursuit. The Pursuit boats are, one, they're beautiful, they're incredibly well made, and you'll love the that dual console that they have. They do a great job. I have not run a World Cat, but I did inspect them. Where were they? Maybe I inspected one in Charleston, and well-built boats. I didn't dive as deep, because they had a bunch of people on the boat, and I was just researching. So then they actually had buyers on the boat there, and they only had one of them, but I think that's where it was. Anyway, doesn't really matter. But I've not run one in rough ocean conditions. The one of the Towboat US boats that I run is a cat. Okay, two of their four boats are actually three of their four boats are cats, but one of them is up getting new engines right now, and they are incredibly stable. They are good running in chop because you've got two really tight V's cutting through. And there's a lot of people in the industry that say, "Hey, cats are gonna take over." Now, because of the hull design, it changes the layout of the boat, so that's gonna make a difference. And I would get out if you can, Todd. I would get out and run one of those World Cats. I want to say they're incredibly different, but there are some noticeable things that are different when you're running them. The way they turn, instead of the V hull, which is going to bank, they turn a little bit more flat, which it feels unusual at first. It's how they're supposed to run. It just feels a little bit different, and my gut tells me that you just get used to it and it's fine. But the first time you turn, you get a little different sensation than what you expect. Like you're expecting something to happen and it doesn't, I guess is the best way to describe it. So I would never, I don't think you would go wrong with that pursuit. But I would say give yourself the opportunity to run that World Cat and run the pursuit. And I think it's going to be more of a personal preference the way you're going to run it. And I think that will help you make your decision. I really need to get out on one of the bigger ones and in some really sloppier conditions because I haven't had that opportunity yet. Can count on one hand the time I've used my anchor on my bass boat, spot lock trolling motor boat at some electrical gremlins. Fired all the electronics, had to wait for a buddy. Yeah, that's Brock. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I know that you've got one on your boat because you understand. You've been around. If you don't know, Brock's got a 247 or no 242 Sportsman Center console and a bass boat. He grew up boating up in the Maryland area and has just been around boats for as long as I have, if not longer. Probably has more boating experience in more different environments than I do. And because of that, he understands that concept that it probably won't happen. You probably won't need it. But when you need it, you need it. And if you don't have it, too late. And so spending the, whatever, the $150, $120, depending on the size boat you have to equip it, the extra 30 pounds that it adds, the locker that it takes up, is it worth that trade-off to potentially not have it if you need it? And it's a personal preference, but you go in my truck, right now, and I've got a tarp, I've got a blanket, I've got a set of jump cables, I've got ratchet straps, I've got bungee cords, I've got a tiny little first aid kit, I've got extra rags, like all this stuff tucked around. There's probably stuff I'm forgetting. So my mind is I've got the space, probably won't need any of this stuff. Hopefully I never need any of that stuff. But when I need it, it's there. And that's where I'm not a Boy Scout, but that's where my mind goes is be ready. Yeah. Plus, yeah, you're right. There is a payload, which is a payload thing to think about, which is the total amount that you're pulling, including what's in the vehicle. And that matters as well. You have to, I don't know what that is on that, but you have to look that number up. Thank you, ER. That is I never really considered that until I started doing this channel and I started doing some research. I was gonna like, all right, can I do a video on the best tow vehicles? And I realized quickly that that's outside my level of expertise to give advice on that. And so I never put it together, but I found a bunch of information that was like, oh, I never really considered that side of it, um, which is why I didn't make the video. So whoever that was, I try not to be full of shit, but it happens from time to time. Was in the same situation. Yeah, Bo, for sure. Just watched 5 best walleye boats. Lund basically tops G3, getting much better. All right, Ray. I don't know, man. We gotta have to have a talk. We're here on the live, and you're going to watch somebody else's videos. That hurts, man. That hurts. Uh, no, I'm just kidding. That I appreciate you reporting back. G3 getting much better. Yeah, G3 is owned by Yamaha. It's part of the Yamaha Boats group. They've got Suncatcher. Yeah, their pontoons and G3. And there's one other one that I don't know why it's escaping me. Welcome, Brian. Brian's up in West Virginia. Corey, welcome. Good to have you. Palm Sunday. Got Easter Sunday coming up. Matt, welcome. Started another business, so it's been crazy. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. I love salespeople and entrepreneurs. That's my kind of people. Would think if you're going out with 8 to 10 people consistently, you might want to go a little bigger than 20. Yeah. That's Corey. That's kind of what my thought was as well. But you've got the limitation of the tow vehicle, and so you've got that balance. So if you haven't bought the tow vehicle, there's some room to move there. And yeah, I found this interesting when I was selling boats. Is I asked these same questions. Almost everything that's in this toolkit is what I asked or shared with or tried to get to when I was selling boats, so that I could help guide them to the right boat, and talk about what's your tow vehicle, and the same conversations that we're having with Don and other people on the live right now. One of the things that I would always ask is, how many people you're going to have? Oh, and they would count everybody up, and they would come up with this huge number, 10, 12, 14 people. And then I would say, all right, realistically, every Saturday, now I'm not counting the Memorial Day, or I'm not counting the one time a year where everybody's in town. How many people are realistically going to be on the boat every weekend for 80% of the summer? And then it would come down to, well, there's 4 of us in the family, and the kids will probably bring a friend, and we would get down to a 6 number that was going to be, we're almost always 6. And then you would talk to them. Well, I was fortunate to sell at a marina, so I saw all my customers every weekend and got to talk to them on the docks and see the kids grow up, and it was pretty cool. And I would say, it is just the 4 of us. It's really, the kids aren't even bringing friends along. We have so much fun as a family. It's just the 4 of us. Our older kids don't want to come. Our younger kids do. Our older kids want to come, but we don't have the friends coming, which we thought. And the number was almost always lower than what they initially thought were going to be out with them on the boat. And so I always try to really think about that number, and really think about that 80%. And I think that can help people get to the right level. And anchor is kind of like a spare tire. Yeah, when you need it, you need it. That is 100% right, Brian. And Brian, I don't know, still does, but either had or has RVs. And so he knows about being prepared for the stuff. I remember when I was selling, we took a bunch of our inland freshwater clients to Charleston, and we ran from Charleston down to Beaufort, and some went on to Hilton Head for an afternoon. And my GM, who grew up in Charleston, he started working at a boat dealership when he was 16 with his buddy's family owned it. That was his only job, is he's always worked in the marine industry at a dealership. And he started putting together our stuff that was going to be on our boat that him and his family, and my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, we all rode on a 260 sun deck. And he started putting all this stuff in. And I was like, why are you bringing parts? Why are you bringing spare parts? Well, sure enough, we're out there and one of the guys breaks down, a client of ours that had his boat, which, we had serviced and was in good shape and should have been totally fine. I don't even remember what it was, but he's like, "Oh yeah, let me dig in my bag. I think I brought one of those." Sure enough, pulled it out. The guy replaced it right there. And, we had 15 boats with us and it didn't slow us down a bit. We pulled off on a sandbar, got it fixed up. And, after everybody was done swimming, we loaded back up and he fired up and went. And I would have never thought about that, but it really goes to that point. Be prepared and within limits, but be prepared. Um, so, all right. I must have missed something there, but all right. Update from MMI, starting to work on gel work, fiberglass, overall boat construction. First project to rebuild a wood stringer boat before moving into finishing hulls. I would love to hear if it's a project boat, if you're tearing out and replacing. I would love to hear about that experience because I know I've got a lot of people that ask about project stuff. I've never done it. I don't have the I kind of want to, but I know I don't have the skill set. I don't have the attention to detail to put it all back together and finish it off nicely. Um, I would be the one that just starts tearing in and starts jumping in, but not having a complete plan of what I need to do. And so I've never done it. So I'd be curious to what your experience is there. Will a Ridgeline pull a 5,000-ton boat trailer safely? That's Corey. That's exactly. I pulled up the towing capacity, and the towing capacity was 5,000. That's where I got that number, and that was just the standard number that I came. I didn't dive any deeper of what model or anything like that. Let's see if I've got it up here. No, these are all Ray's boats. So, but that's where that number came from. Thanks. Never thought of it that way. Spare tire would be a deal breaker. Yes. Awesome. Well, good. I stand corrected. All right. Corey, 5,000 Ridgeline limit, not to mention weak suspension brakes. Silverado instead. Never been a cat person. I don't know what's going on with my comments today, but I feel like I'm missing all sorts of inside jokes that you guys are having a better time over there than I am. Yeah, I'm a dog, Matt. I'm a dog guy as well. I've got two little ones that run around here. You might hear them barking in the background every now and again, but they're not boat dogs. They are. I've never always had dogs, but never taken the dogs on the water. Too paranoid about a nail going into the upholstery. Same way, 300 piece mechanic tool set. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know. I'm sure I got it from my dad. But I don't know why, I've always done that. But maybe it's also, like I said, I buy used vehicles. My first car was a hand-me-down from my older brother, a 76 Monte Carlo, and you better have some tools in that thing because you're fixing something, and you never know when you're gonna need to just pull over and do something. I changed alternators and radiators and all sorts of things on that car, and just it's just always been my mentality is there's a good chance I'm going to break down with the car I have. And even now that I've got nicer vehicles and they're not breaking down, I still have I still have the stuff tucked everywhere. Matter of fact, my daughters are like, "Why you got all this crap in here?" So if you do any trailering, a bottle jack and proper lug wrench, yes, yeah. I'm not sure when you say a bottle jack. Okay, there we go. I've never heard it called that. If this is Harbor Freight, that's okay. I don't know why I've never heard that called a bottle jack, but I gotcha. Yes, that is. It's much easier than the cranking guy, the scissor jack for sure. All right, bought a 2500 HD. That'll do the trick. Bought it real. My dream boat's too wide, too heavy for me to tow. Yes, that is my brother. He pulled his. He had a 266 Crown line that he pulled with a Ram 2500, which was awesome. It was a great truck, but it was his daily driver too, so it was a little rougher when you're running around, but it allows you to pull it so much easier. Everything's easier with that. Ray, I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you, my friend. As long as you keep coming back and trying to be first in line, you get us started right. We're good. We're good. Some family and friends that bought a 23-foot tube, 25 overall, 200 Merc, says 8 or more. Would you say 200 outboard's too small? Think the 250 would be better. Yeah. All right. So 23 with 25. Yeah, it depends what they're gonna do and how many people. With 8 people, yeah, that 200, I mean, you're gonna get into maybe the low 30s with that type of setup, with that type of weight. It's not gonna pop right out of the hole, but you might be able to get up if you were doing some water sports. You could probably cruise comfortably low 20s. So it's gonna work, okay? It's gonna work, but do you want to, are you gonna get caught out in weather and really wanna hightail it home ever? Are you really gonna wanna do some water sports with all 8 people on the boat? Now that 250, you're gonna be glad you have it. So it's on the side of, all right, is running 30, for me personally, when I'm out with my family running a tune, um I'm going 18 to 22 miles an hour. If we're trying to get to the restaurant or we see weather coming up and we're trying to get back home, I might get on a little bit more. But I'm, a 200 with 8 people on it. Like I said, it's going to run low 30s. Might even, if you really get it trimmed up right, you might even get up to 35 with that setup. That's going pretty good. Um, if you're gonna do water sports, it's gonna wakeboard fine with that. It's gonna pull tubes fine. If you got a big guy like me, and it also depends, are those 8 people 225 like I am? Or are some of those kids and your average weight's, 120, which is what they use, what a lot of manufacturers are using as the average weight when they're calculating their capacity. The manufacturers set their capacity plate number using the Coast Guard calculation, buoyancy divided by average weight gives you the number of people. So there's that calculation. Coast Guard gives you the calculation, but the manufacturers get to determine what the average weight of the person on the boat is. So you can have the same boat. This happened to me when I was selling Sea Ray. Is we had a 205 Sport that was rated for 8 people, 21-foot boat rated for 8 people. The next year, zero changes in the boat, but the next year it came out and it was rated for 10. Well, what they did is they dropped the average weight of the people down so that they could advertise it as available seating for 10, because other manufacturers did that. And so their 21 could hold 10 people, our 21 could hold 8, and we started losing market share. And the marketing people said, well, let's just monkey with the numbers, and now we can make ours rated for 10. It's kind of goofy, but so it depends on what the weight of those 8 people are, Matt, is where I'm getting as I get sidetracked, as I often do. But the 250, it's going to have more power. It's going to be better. The 200 is going to be adequate for most people in most situations. If they're not big speed demons, if they're not doing a ton of water sports, and if they're, if they are just cruising, right? All right. Somehow my little V6 Trailblazer still pulls my 21 Cuddy with all the mods I made, with all the mods you made. There you go. Let's see. No one has ever wished they went smaller, but they can wish they went bigger. That is true. 100% true. Nobody's ever had too much horsepower. I don't know that anybody's ever had too big a boat, unless it doesn't fit in the slip or fit in the garage. I learned this before I started the Bayliner. Might have bought all the equipment myself, but now might be too late. Yeah. When you get to a certain point, you don't want to start back over. I'd love to finish out with the new hull. Yeah. How to move 25-foot boat if I don't own a truck. So, Dennis, there are a couple of things that you can do. If you search just boat transport in your area, I'm in the Charlotte area, and there is there's a guy that actually, a buddy of mine bought a 21-foot chaparral down in Atlanta. This would be his second year with it. And I referred him this guy. He is Mark. I've got his card here somewhere. I talked to him at the boat show. Norman Wiley Detail in the Charlotte area. I doubt if you're in the Charlotte area. Who knows where you're at? Mark Allen is his last name. But there are companies that will transport it and use their own trailer. Depending on how far you're going, the typical fee might be $4 or so, depending on where you're at. $4 or so a loaded mile is kind of a common fee. And so a loaded mile is just the one-way trip. Typically, I don't know where you're at. I don't know the specifics of your boat, if there's any work that they need to do to get it ready for transport. But a lot of these places will have their own trailer, and they'll just load you up on their trailer, get you tied down real well. I will encourage you to do a little research on them, because there's some places like, what is it? Uship. There's some places like uship.com that you put your, hey, I've got this and I need to move it from here to here, and they'll give you an estimate, and they do boats. Some of those guys aren't insured. Some of those guys know what they're doing. Some of them don't. So you just want to make sure that you find somebody that is going to do a good job, knows how to pull a boat. Preferably if you can be there yourself, because when I sold boats, I had boats go up to Canada. I sent boats down to Venezuela, to Australia, and I kind of took it upon myself to make sure that whoever they chose to transport it, is that when they left my shop, that the boat was buttoned up the right way. But I had guys that were hired that wanted to leave, parts of the canvas up, or had something that clearly was going to flap in the wind and fray going 500 miles or wherever they were going, that were going to leave cushions sitting in the boat that were likely going to blow out on a long trip. A lot of times those guys won't cover the boat, because the boat will sometimes tow better without the canvas on. And, sometimes the canvas isn't made for being towed at high speeds, long distances. And so they would just clear everything out of the boat, put that in the truck. But make sure that you're there if you can be, or at least have them take a picture. Hey, this is what I look like, and I'm getting ready to hit the road. So you can say, what about that? What about this? Let's put this in the cab. Let's get this buttoned up a little bit better. Let's tape this down. We did a lot of that, where we would tape the leading edge of something, especially on a canvas. If we were leaving the canvas on, I would tape the leading edge if it was a snap-on canvas. So that way there was no air getting up under there, less likely to damage something, less likely to get some little string flipping out that starts fraying and then starts getting worse and worse over time. So just those are the types of things, but just search up somebody to transport it. And every area, it's all local. So it's every area has a Mark Allen that does a great job, that's insured, that's been doing it for 25 years, that has 3 different trailers that they use. And they probably do some detailing or some fiberglass work, or they do something else, but they also transport boats. So you can find that for sure. Matter of fact, if you're in the area, let me know and I'll send you Mark's information. Bottle jack lifts much higher capacity due to their taller height. Car jack isn't made to jack a trailer. Yeah. Great tip. Great tip, Brian. Still own my first car, 72 Olds. There you go. The 442. That is, I've got a cousin that that was his dream car, is he always wanted a 442. And I don't know that he's got it yet. I know he's talked his wife into it, but yeah, I love the Cutlass and the Monte Carlos. That was that. As a matter of fact, I had a 76 Monte Carlo and an 82 Monte Carlo with T-tops was my second one. Man, did I think I was cool in that thing. When I was 18 years old, used the aluminum D-shaped quick jacks on my bass boat. I wouldn't trust those with my heavy boat. Sure makes servicing bearing. Yeah. Yeah, flat tire on the side of the interstate and changing bearings in the driveway, a little different level of safety that you need. Seeing some lower prices on Sundancers in Florida, a mid-90s boat, 250 to 290. Potentially, yeah. Is what you want to look out for, Eli, is were they left in the water and how well maintained were they? A boat that's 30 years old that's been left in the water and had any portion of its life not being well maintained could be a major problem. And so just make sure that you're inspecting everything. Run a bore scope up, and if it's a stern drive, which a 90 Sundancer will be, did it have the C core? I don't even know when they came out with C core, if that would even be an option in that model year. But were they closed cooled, or were they pulling raw water in? And have they changed the risers and manifolds and done that service probably multiple times? When's the last time they did it? Those are the types of things you want to look at. Go through everything. We talk about a lot of this in this video here. If you haven't watched this one, how to buy a used cruiser, 24 to 50 foot. I go through a lot of that. Now, Eli, this would be a suggestion for you. Okay, so you're in Florida. Those are all saltwater boats. A consideration, if you're looking that old, is to go somewhere like go to Lake Martin in Alabama, or come up to Lake Lanier in Atlanta, or even up here, Lake Norman, Lake Wiley in Charlotte. Go somewhere inland and buy that same 90s Sundancer that's been in freshwater its whole life. Take that baby back down to Florida. And I guarantee you that if the boat has been equally maintained in Florida and sitting in a lake here in the South where the weather doesn't get too cold, the freshwater boat is going to be a better ownership experience for you than a 30-year-old saltwater boat. So you've got the transport costs. You've got to find the right transport person, but that would be something you want to consider. The reason that you're seeing lower prices on Sundancers in Florida is because the boats are in rougher shape. If you look at the NADA guides, it says knock off 10 to 15% if it's a saltwater boat. That's just off the average retail price, knock 10, 15% off because it's saltwater. And that's just the way it is, because it's a harsher environment. There's more maintenance. There's oftentimes deferred maintenance that comes up, but it's a harsher environment, and the boats depreciate quicker. But I think that's something that could be a great way to get a boat that's going to have a better ownership experience. You might pay $5,000 more. Maybe you won't though. So because there's a lot of those boats built, and the cruiser market is going down. So I think there's going to be at some point there's going to be some good opportunities. One other thing that I heard the other day, I don't know if Boater Tom is on, but he told me that he's talked to some dealers, and they're starting to see the hurricane. Was it Hurricane Ian? The latest hurricane down there. They're starting to see those insurance checks come in, and so the sales in South Florida, actually Florida overall, are starting to get buoyed by those checks coming in. And so there's more used boats coming on the market down there, and those boats are selling. So that market is actually doing pretty good, considering that we're talking about the market starting to slow down, becoming more of a buyer's market. But now all that influx of money is coming in, and those people that are going to stay boaters are going to be spending those checks. And I brought that up because watch out, because I also saw, let me see if I can find it. Cane boats. So this is, you are starting to see hurricane damaged boats soon hitting the used boat market. That's from 2017. It was a news report. Maybe it was this one right here, Fox News. Now that might not load up, but anyway, it was a news report of this yard in Florida of 400 or so hurricane damaged boats that they were auctioning off. And what happens is they auction them off to people. Maybe they got a salvage title, maybe they don't. Maybe they disclose they're in a hurricane, maybe they don't. But be on the lookout, because those hurricane boats are starting to hit the market. And just make sure the boat history report's a great way to confirm that, hey, has this boat had a salvage title at any point? And make sure that you're not buying a boat that was underwater for a period of time, or has a salvage title that maybe they're trying to hide something, or maybe the title didn't get salvaged, but it sustained some serious damage in the hurricane, and now you're buying somebody else's problem. So just be on the lookout for that, because they are hitting the market as the checks are coming in for those people to buy new ones. So Eli, hopefully that's helpful for you. Yes, not good on the RV. Let's see here. Trailer 8, it's a ramp. Lifts one wheel. Oh, interesting. I'll have to check those out. Very interesting. Savvy Simulant, welcome. He's been a long time live attendee. All right, where are we at on time here? I think we're for whatever reason, there we go. We're an hour and 43 minutes. It wasn't showing the top level of time or how many people are on. All right, so we're coming up on an hour and 45 minutes here. Let's keep rolling, and we'll start to wrap up. All right. Yeah, that 250 is a V8. Yes, 200 is a 6, but has a lot more displacement. Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't know who it was that said it. Is you're never going to be disappointed with going bigger on the horsepower. Is it necessary? I don't think it's necessary. Would it be nice? Yeah, for sure. It's one of those, Matt. There's not a right answer. In this case, a 200 isn't the wrong answer. I can tell you that. Is there? It's not going to be. I gave you the numbers. I think with that setup, 23-foot tubes, 25-foot boat, 200, a 200. I'm going to guess you're going to run low 30s, maybe you get mid 30s at 90% throttle or so, trimmed up, all that. Cruising, you're probably going to run low 20s, just, cruising at, let's say, 4,000 RPMs or so. That's going to cover my style. That's going to cover my style of boating pretty dang well. And it's going to be perfectly suitable. It's a matter of, do they want a little more than that? Are they more speed demon than I am? I'm not much of a speed guy. I'm a, hey, we're out here to relax. I'm not in a hurry to get anywhere very often. And I'm never going to be in a situation where, I shouldn't say never. I'm unlikely to get in a situation where I just have to get back, and that extra 10 minutes is going to make a big difference to me. Would it be nice to put that throttle down and get that baby trimmed up with 8 people and cruise by a Sea Ray that's going by? Yeah, that would be nice. But is it worth the extra 4, 5, 6 grand, whatever that jump is in price between the 200 and the 250? And wear and tear on the engine, you could go with that, but unless you're running at that high RPM most of the time, it's a nice to have, but I don't think for most people that it's 100% necessary, if that makes sense. It's so hard. It's like I haven't figured this out yet, how to describe the difference between horsepower in a situation okay, if you say we're putting a 150 on it and we're going to have 8 people. Now I'm a little bit, it's still probably fine, but if you say a 115, that's a clear, hey, you're not going to be happy with that performance. The 150 and 200, I haven't figured out how to describe that. It's just like the ride is better. The Cobalt ride is better than a Monterey ride. Monterey ride's not bad, but the Cobalt's just better. And I haven't figured out a way to describe that in a way that helps somebody make a decision. So I need to figure that out, how to maybe work on my descriptiveness or something. I don't know. And I certainly don't know how to show it in a video. When did the wakeboarding trend take off? How did that boat segment grow so large quickly? Who were the big investors at the beginning? So wakeboarding, it evolved out of crazy boaters. Somebody in the 80s, I think, put a surfboard back there and started surfing just on a regular out of the box ocean surfboard. I don't know anything about surfing. When did start? And the wakeboarding, Savvy, you missed this, but my daughter made her first magazine for a school project, and she says, "Who made wakeboards?" You might be wondering who made wakeboarding. Well, the creator of wakeboarding was Howard Jacobs. Howard made the wakeboard in the 1980s. The sport originated in New Zealand and Australia. The first wakeboard was called a scurfer, which if you have been a boater for a long time, the scurfer was a big yellow banana looking thing that had 2 little straps on it. You just slid your feet in. It wasn't boots, but just 2 little loops that you slid your feet in, and you did it just like today. You set in and you went up. I rode one. My buddy Gerald had one, and when I went boating with his family, or when he came with us, he would bring the scurfer, and we did that a couple of times. Surfing. So wakeboarding started in the 80s. It kind of got popular over time in, I don't know, probably 2000 or so. They started putting the ballast in. But all of the ski towboats, which slalom skiing was the big thing in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So you wanted a flat as you could wake. So you had Mastercraft, you had Ski Centurion at the time, which is now just Centurion. You had Ski Supreme, which is now just Supreme. You had all of the towboats were flat bottom, inboard direct drive. They put the motor in the center of the boat, straight shaft out, big brass propeller. That kept the weight evenly distributed to get as small of a wake as you could, because you were cutting back and forth at 35 miles an hour, hitting the buoys, and you wanted as flat a water as you could. Then the Scurfer came out, as my daughter's research for her magazine project tells us. And then they started saying, well, we want to jump. We want to take this Scurfer, now that we can do some tricks. We want to jump so we can do some flips and some more aerial stuff. And so then they started putting ballast in the boats, and instead of changing the bottom, the whole design, they just put more weight in the back end, and that would sink the water, or sink the corner of the boat, displace more water, give you a bigger wake. So that was in the early 2000s. And then the towboat manufacturer said, hey, maybe there's a market here. Maybe there's a market here that, what if we redesign the bottom of our boats so that they, instead of being a flat bottom, if we did a deep V and we did some crazy things and we put trim tabs on, or wedges, and we did these, maybe if we put something out into the stream of water, we can divert the water, and we can make one side a big, huge surf wake and the other. So you had Malibu created their first wedge and patented it, which they still have the patent. Then you had others that went with the trim tab design, Centurion, Taiga, a bunch of them are using that to get around the patent. That diverts the water, displaces more water, bigger wake, and they just kept adding ballast and ballast on. So in 2014, 2015, they started putting all that stuff together in, and it just has taken off. So it was an evolution. And this right here says, some claims face the beginning of boat surfing or wake surfing as early as 1920. Because the propellers located beneath the moat, inboard ski boat, wake boats are the most common choice for this activity. I don't know how accurate that is. That number is one that I've never heard before. But here we go. I see Dick Pope in the article, and I assume this is accurate. So this says, goes back to the 20s. No credible evidence is currently available. Plenty of film, print media in the 50s and 60s showing surfers riding their ocean boards behind motorboats. The first one, a record. The real promoting of the sport started in 1963 and 64 as Dick Pope Sr., award-winning water skier. The first skis that I learned to ski on were Dick Pope Jr.'s, the kid skis, and we had Dick Pope's, which were the big wooden skis. That's what I learned to ski on when I was 5-6 years old. And so that says 63, 64. And it just, evolved over time, and till they started making the ocean wave producing things that are, putting legislation impact that trying to outlaw some of them. I mean, it's happened at Connecticut, Oregon, Washington, all have active legislation either limiting or outlawing surf boats and the big ballast boats. So the money behind it, I think it was just the boating industry saying, there's an opportunity. How can we satisfy them? And then they innovated and innovated as it became more popular. And the reason it became so popular, especially the surfing, is it's easy. It's easy to do. It's easy on the body. You can be 70 years old and get out and surf, and when you fall, you're going 10 miles an hour. It's fine. Versus the wakeboarding, which is you're going 18 and you're flipping, and when you fall, you're going to feel it for a long time, even if you're 30. So, that I did a video on this, so this isn't stuff that I just know off the top of my head. I did a video on, let's see. If you search wake surfing on my channel, you'll find that video. I'm always a bit disappointed when someone asks about buying a used boat and you don't break out the. You know what, Brian? I lost my giant screwdriver. I'm almost certain that my daughters have taken it and they have not fessed up to it, and I haven't found it yet. So all I've got, is my little screwdriver. And yes, make sure that you tap the hull. Make sure you tap the hull for a good solid and not a dull thud, to make sure that you've got no water intrusion, especially on the transom, especially a boat that's been in the water. That good, Brian. Thank you for that. And I miss my big screwdriver. Every now and again, I ask my daughters to see if they've found it somewhere hidden in their room. I don't know why they would steal it from me, but it's hard to say. I would agree that it took off in the 90s, not started, but when it really took off, put a lot of value in the bigger wakes rather than, yeah, you're exactly right, Bo. 100%, 100%. How about pulling power, top speed? Yeah, it's, Matt, I'm 225. Okay. I'm 225 and I will slalom ski behind my parents. They have a 22-foot South Bay Tri-Tune, with a 150 Merc 4-stroke. Okay. My dad, I'm little. I'm the little guy in my family at 6'2", 225. My brother's 6'4" and way more than, let's say, 250 maybe. My dad's 6'4" and probably 300. My wife is almost 6 foot tall. And so I will ski with 6, 7 people on the boat, a full cooler, and I'll get up on a slalom ski on that 150. And here's why it's not as big a deal on the pontoons. A bow rider, when it takes off, it does this and goes. A pontoon, when it takes off, does that. It's already on plane for the most part. And it doesn't have that bow rise. And so the 4-stroke outboards, it's not the 2-stroke where the torque is just boom and you're screaming, but it's pretty darn good in newer ones. And because you don't have the bow rise, because you're really, I mean, you don't, your bow doesn't come up at all. You're really just going. And so at 225, I gotta put my head down and I gotta hold on. But I can get up on my ski no problem on a slalom. I don't drag a foot. I never learned how to do that. I get up with 2 feet in the boots and go. And so, and that's with the 150. Now the 200, very similar, just tweaked a little bit. So it's not going to be significantly better. But I know it's doable because I do it every year, and I do it with a bunch of bigger, respect to my family, but bigger people on the boat. So that would be, but again, as whoever, I don't know who it was, maybe it was 211 that said it. Nobody ever said I got too much horsepower. So there will be advantages to it, but I just don't think it's 100% necessary. But it would be nice. Yeah, and having the boat propped the right way is going to make a big difference as well. If they need that out of the hole, like their water sports is big and they need that torque, okay, then let's prop it with a little bit smaller prop that is gonna allow us to go. Now our top end, we're gonna lose some on the top end, because it's gonna hit your RPM limit, but it's going to be a little quicker out of the hole. And I don't know what prop my parents run on their boat, but I can almost guarantee, knowing my dad, it's whatever one it came from the dealer. It's a stainless steel, whatever Merc prop that was on it is what it is, and he's never monkeyed with it because it runs within the RPM range that they have. So, of Aaron C, welcome back. Good to have you. Have you seen many conversations to electric motors for cruisers? Are they efficient? No, I have not seen. Most of the electric motors that you're seeing out there are they're either going to be pontoons, like what is it, Pure Water, that GM invested a bunch of millions in. Is that Pure Water pontoons? Is that Pure Watercraft? Yeah. So Pure Watercraft is a electric pontoon manufacturer. Um, GM invested, I want to say 50 million into them, maybe in the last year. GM. January 22, it unveils new pontoon boat. It was before that. Yeah, November 2001. GM put a bunch of money in them. The other ones are smaller boats. You've got eVision Marine that has their 180 outboard. They've also got so they're just developing the outboard. When I ran that, it was on a 25-foot pontoon. Might have been a Harris. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they're just developing the engine. They have some boats, but that's how they got started. And then they went. Let's see what their boats are, just basic bow riders, and like a fantail, like tourist boats, right? So like, hey, get 10 people on and let's run through the canals and give you a little tour. And then this 18-footer, I think that's the one that they ran first at the Lake of the Ozark shootout, that kind of got their start. I've seen that boat. I haven't run it. But they've gone kind of away from that and are really focusing on the outboard. The other ones are much smaller. And then you have ones like what is it? Candela, I think the name of it. They're matching electric with hydrofoils. So this is a group that came from SpaceX, and they spun off, and they are developing outboard power with hydrofoils. Okay, so what's interesting about this one is they are using the technology of hydrofoil, and if you can see, this is the electric motor down there. So they're putting the electric motor on the hydrofoil because there's a couple advantages to that. One is it's electric motors are really small, right? And when you put them on the hydrofoil, they actually are submerged in water. One of the biggest things with the electric engines, or the electric motors, I think is the right term, is they get really hot. So you have to have a cooling system. By running them underwater on the hydrofoil, is you don't have to have a cooling system now. You don't need to take any voltage to run pumps to cool the motor itself. You still got to cool the batteries. I think that's still part of it. But that's kind of an interesting thing. But I'm not seeing anybody doing electric cruisers that I'm aware of. Candela's out of Canada. There is a company out of Finland, maybe. They're making, let me see, electric boats, Finland. I did a video on this a while ago. X-Shore, there we go. That's the one I was thinking of. So X-Shore, it's kind of that utility boat, like the Axopar, that they call it an adventure boat, but that's a 21-foot, 26-foot. Looks like that's their biggest. So I don't have anything. I don't have anything that I know of. Not that they don't exist, because they certainly could. That's more of a cruiser style. So, Michigan. yes, there are some nuclear options that are out there, but I think those are a little bigger than what you're considering of Air and Sea. Let's see. Safety question is the sheriff that is the top post in the inland lakes versus Coast Guard are the same. Other schemes for water safety. So, Savvy, it depends on the waterway. So, if any water connects to the ocean through locks, doesn't matter. That's going to be the Coast Guard has jurisdiction on those lakes. Okay. So I boat on Lake Loudon in Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, you can lock down all the way to the Gulf Coast there. So the Coast Guard runs on Lake Loudon and the rivers. Okay. But they're also, you've got the local authorities have jurisdiction as well. Who the top one is, I don't know. I don't know who that would be. But so you've got Coast Guard, you've got the local, and then you've got the DNR for the state. Now, here locally where I am, Lake Wiley is another lake. It is on the border of North and South Carolina. Because that's federal water now, because it's interstate, Coast Guard also has jurisdiction on Lake Wiley. It's not connected to anything. You can't get anywhere from Lake Wiley. It's just you're there. But Coast Guard still has jurisdiction, and they're only out there maybe 10 times a year. But they can put a boat on the water and they can patrol it and they can pull people over and issue citations. But it's half of the lake is in North Carolina, half of the lake's in South Carolina. So there's North Carolina DNR, South Carolina Wildlife. And then there's also the local enforcement. So you have Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, which is the county that Charlotte, North Carolina is in, part of the lakes in Charlotte. So they patrol their section. You've got Gaston County, patrols their section. You have York County, which patrols their section. And you have, there's one other county I'm forgetting. But anyway, so you have on this one lake, maybe 300 miles of shoreline. You can run from end to end in an hour and a half. And there's a bunch of little fingers that go off, but you can run that main channel. But Coast Guard, 2 state DNR wildlifes, and probably 4 or 5 local city and county jurisdictions. So that lake is patrolled by a bunch of different people. But the Coast Guard, anything that accesses the ocean, anything that's interstate that has 2 borders on it. And then from there, you'll go to like Lake Norman, a much bigger lake, but it doesn't have any Coast Guard because it's all in North Carolina. So you've got North Carolina wildlife, and then you've got the counties that also patrol their section of the lake that's in their county. And they all, I know several of the guys that work the lakes for the local authorities. I don't know any of the Coast Guard guys, but they all work very, very well together and have a good working relationship. Let's see. If I'm still deciding between a cruiser and a sailboat, if a cruiser can be outfitted, converted to electric, something to think about. Yeah, it's the running time, but I'm sure that somebody's looking at it, and electric boat. Motor boat. Well, there's kind of a cruiser that Alpha Street 28 cabin Slavian built boats. I don't know that name. ARC, that's a towboat. Nope. Okay, so Candela, that is not a picture of a Candela. So that might be, if you go to motorboat Motor Boat and Yacht. It's mby.com. It looks like they did this article back in, oh, that's pretty recent, January 17th, 23. So that might be best electric boats A to Z. You have to sift through all the other ones, but you might find something there. I did my video on electric boats 2 years ago. So who knows what new shifts or adjustments and strategies or just new companies that are out there, because there's a ton of money going into it. Like I said, GM invested a boatload into Pure Watercraft. eVision Marine had a bunch of venture capital in them. Epic Boats is a lady I know from the industry that her and her husband started one. And that is an area where I think a lot of investors are looking to get into that market. And I think you'll see new stuff coming out every year for sure. Need an honest, caring suggestion to appease a woman's wishes. A boat to sleep in. Cannot be a sailboat. Must be a motorboat. 50,000 used. What would you do? So Stephen, tell me a little bit more than just that you want to sleep in it. Are you freshwater, saltwater? Are you wanting to sleep at a marina and just plugged into shore power? Do you need to trailer it? Or is this really just a condo on the water and it's just you and your wife? Because something like a Sea Ray 280 Sundancer for sale. So something like this, a 280 Sundancer, I think is a good. This one is 55,000 for a 22 or 22 and 02. But something like this would be, it's big enough, I think, for a couple to sleep on. And if you spend 3-4 days on the boat, you're not going to get cramped on something like this. 280s, there's going to be a bunch of them out there. Make sure that that it suits your other needs as well. But that's my initial thought, partly because I sold a ton of these 280 Dancers. I know they're a great boat. I know Sea Ray made a bunch of them in the early 2000s before the market shifted away from cruisers a little bit. It's small enough that you can trailer it, but you're probably not going to want to, unless you got a minimum of 2,500. You're not going to want to trailer it. It's a big boat to be probably left in the water. But it is a 9.4 beam. So in some states you may need a permit. A lot of states, if you're over 8.5 foot beam, you need a permit. But I had a handful of clients that trailered these on triple axle trailers. But that's kind of, when you initially say it, that's where my mind goes. They make them down to a 24 foot cruiser, and you certainly can sleep on that. That's tight for two people. But it's more flexible, more usable for other things because it's smaller, more trailerable because it's narrower. But that might be what you want to check out. All right, we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes here. So we'll do a couple more. I really got to go to the bathroom. I've got 3 drinks here with me, and I'm insisting on drinking all of them. If you had 12 people on the boat, Matt, do you want me to tell your friends to get the 250? I think that's what you're going for. If you had, say, 12 people on the boat, will that 250 yank you out of the water? Just trying to get some perspective on how powerful that 250 is. No, it's that 250 is not going to yank you out of the water with 12 people on the boat. That's a lot of, let's say, that's 2,400 pounds if you've got 12 of me on the boat. More than that, but that's easy math. So 12 people at 200 pounds, that's 2,400 pounds plus the 2,000, 3,000 pounds of the boat, motor and gear. So that's, let's say 4,500 pounds, just ballparking 4,500 pounds that's got to get up and moving. It's not jumping right out, but it's accelerating pretty darn quick. Matt, the only way I know how to describe it, or to get you to understand is you got to go do it yourself. Here's the hard part is you're going to be hard pressed to put 12 people on a boat unless you go to unless you find an in-water boat show and run a 200 and then run a 250. Will it be noticeable if it's just you and 4 people on the boat? Yeah, you'll be able to tell that the 250 accelerates much quicker. It's it's going to give you a better experience for sure, no doubt about it. It's a matter of, can you justify that extra spend for that extra performance? And it's like this. This is good enough, but this is better. So that's where you're at. 200 is good enough. 250 is better, but it costs $6,000. Is it worth $6,000 to you to have better? Noticeably better, significantly better? Absolutely. Good enough, better. And like I said, I don't know how to describe it any better. Like I just, you've got to experience it for yourself. And for what you're trying to get to is you've got to experience it with 2,000 pounds on this boat and 2,000 pounds on that boat, which is, 10 people. And that's not always easy to do, but yeah, it's not necessary, but it would be nicer. So, but if you want them to get the 250, I will put a personal video together for them and encourage them to get the 250. But I don't have, all right, let's see what we can find here. What I'll do is I'm going to, Matt, I'm going to go into my boat test account and I'm going to see if I can find a boat test, performance testing on a pontoon, tri-tune 200 versus 250 and see if I can find something that would be stats. But I don't have, that's not the way my mind thinks, is I'm not that analytical where I'm gonna do performance testing. One, I don't have access to that many boats that I could do it side by side. Two, there's so many other variables, if they're prop different, if it's different weights, all that. But I'll see if Boat Test has something like that and share that with you if I find something that's worthwhile. But again, adequate, better is the way I would describe it to them. I believe Coast Guard trumps any other law enforcement on navigable waters. That's probably correct. But I don't know that for 100% of how they share jurisdiction and also like in what situation it's going to matter, right? So if Coast Guard pulls you over, the state patrol or the state DNR isn't going to pull you over also. The sheriff, and that's the other one, is there's DNR and there's sheriff on Lake Wylie. Question: you were given a naval battleship, no taxes, and it's free. Would you keep it? I don't think so. I don't know what I would do with it. It's just listen, a boat takes a lot to maintain. It costs money to store those things. I would say thank you, but I'm just going to take it and sell it to whoever needs a battleship. Xander out of NL have some pretty sweet electrics. Extenders. Climate Carbon Super Yacht Tender. Oh, those are interesting looking. That the limousine, maybe I read something about somebody wanting to make an on-water limousine. I wonder if it was these guys. I'll have to check them out. Thank you, Savvy. I appreciate that. Of Air and Sea, it's extenders.com We'll what does that say? Okay. The 60-foot 9-meter limousine on board. So a 60-meter, I'm guessing that's not an electric super yacht or yacht at 60 meters, but they've got a 9-meter tender, so that's a nice setup. Cheat Lake, Morgantown has the Coast Guard come in last year because of several drunk boating accidents. Yeah, they might. Coast Guard was out of Marion Friday, checking boats, 7 a.m. near the Visionary Canal between Marion and Moultrie. Yeah, they're out there, and it depending on the waterway, they may be like on Wiley. We're landlocked, so they're only out there a handful of times. I think. Can you between Marion and Moultrie? Is that where you lock through? I don't know if I know some of those lakes down there have locks down to the coast, and some don't. But yeah, that's right. Learn the hard way with beam size. Yeah, the width matters. The width matters when you're towing. Hey, Captain, everyone, good session tonight. Rob, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, we're at 2 hours and 21 minutes. If we're spending our friends' money, that's exactly right, Brian. And I always try to balance that. Like my advice, it's it's my opinion. I don't have the answer, but I just want to try to give people things to think about. And I try to pretend. Well, if it were me, I would struggle with the decision. I wouldn't just automatically do the 250 for me. It would be nice if money was not an object. Yeah, the 250 is no question. But if that's $6,000, is there $6,000? I don't know if that's the exact dollar amount, but it's probably somewhere close to that. Is it a $6,000 better experience? For some people, it will be. For some, it's just a matter of I want the bigger motor, I'll spend it. For others, it's man, I can spend that $6,000 on something else and have more enjoyment. So, yeah. All right. Hey, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. I'm not saying that more horsepower is not better, because here's the other thing that this is kind of interesting. The more horsepower is actually cheaper to run on fuel because it doesn't have to work as hard. It usually works this way because you run at lower RPM to hit 22 miles an hour. You're not going to burn as much fuel, and it's actually cheaper. Now, is it going to offset the price difference? You got to run the boat a lot to make it offset the price difference, but there is a cheaper cost of ownership once you make that initial investment, because it doesn't have to work as hard if you're running in the lower RPM ranges. If you're running wide open throttle and just, scooting down the lake all the time you're running, then that doesn't apply. But for cruising in that 3,500 to 4,500 RPM range, probably you're getting better gallons per hour. Corey, great to have you. Have a great week. Notice that there are certain pilot house boats still on dealership lots. Is this normal for this time of year? 21s, I would say no. 22s for sure. Absolutely. Having the pilot house in the 22, where the 23s started coming out in August, September. Now, what's interesting is I had dealers tell me that they were still getting 22s in September and October. So this year, because of all the supply chain issues and things were happening, they were getting their model years later than they ever had. When it was probably 2010ish, maybe 2011, where they started new model years started coming out in August. They were coming out, I don't remember when it was, but it was a little bit different time prior to that. But it's unusual for them to get a 2022 after the end of July. And these dealers were getting 2022s in September and October. So with that said, I'm not surprised that there's 2022s on the lot. 2021s, if that's the case, well, then you've got some serious negotiating clout, because they need to get those 2021s are costing them curtailment payments, which means they've got to pay the interest and they've got to pay some principal on those boats because they're depreciating, right? And as we get back to normal times, they're depreciating, and the bank says, well, we still need to keep our equity in that boat, so you got to pay some principal in addition to the interest payments, and we're gonna charge you those curtailment payments every month. Boom, we need them. So every month that dealer doesn't sell, not only does it depreciate more, they can sell it for less, but it's costing them cash money, which is cash flow for a dealer is a challenge. So you've got certainly a negotiating position that you could take advantage of. The lock is on Moultrie, puts you out in the Cooper River, which takes you down to the harbor. About an hour ride, running 35 most of the way, 2 no wake zones. Okay, I thought that's where it was. But I wasn't 100% sure. Have a great week. Brian, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for joining us. And all right, I'm gonna call it here. Thank you guys. Have a good night. We'll see what Todd has to say. 01 310 Dancer, which I'm in love with. Yeah, that's a good size. That 280 310. You've got the room to move. It's still fairly easy to run. It's not so big that that it's intimidating. You still got to learn to run the twin screws, but it can be I think when you get up to the 340 and 380, I know when I ran those, I could run the 280 and the 310 no problem. I was comfortable with those, but I got into a 340 and a 380, and I started to get a little bit more nervous because you're up higher, you're getting more wind, and you've got more sail area that catches, and you're a little bit wider, so you're you got less room in the slip for any error. And I found that more challenging. I have a 210 Dancer, absolutely love. DM if you'd like. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for offering that up to him. Savvy, I appreciate it. Thank you guys all for joining, and we'll catch you next week. 2 hours and 27 minutes. All right. We're having a good time. The season's kicking off. We're getting people on and getting some great questions. So we'll catch you guys all next week.